what I want to do now is move on to my favorite part of the show. Very little time spent on you, and what I'm interested in is your life experiences, because clearly you've been doing what you're doing long enough. But tell us about Bill Hildebolt. Take us back to the beginning. Tell us, where did you grow up, and share with us some of your early experiences in life.
Yeah, well, obviously love the question, and hopefully I won't ramble too much. But it's interesting. Both my parents grew up basically on farms or in farmland in Western Ohio, and so I ended up being born while my parents were in Columbus. My dad was finishing up his PhD at Ohio State, but to this day, you know, we continue to own farms in Western Ohio. And so sort of the DNA that I bring to the world is this, you know, is this sort of literally back to the soil, like providing and you know, and building something literally from the ground up. But educationally, so I grew up in New Jersey, North Carolina, always on the East Coast. My aptitude ended up being more mathematical. And so my first job out of college was working in a commercial bank. It's was called Wachovia. It's now part of Wells Fargo. And then I moved on and I did investment banking in Morgan Stanley. And then I continued down the finance path and worked in venture capital for a few years. And so those stages, I was moving closer and closer to operations, right? As a commercial banker, making loans to businesses, then doing more raising equity and mergers and acquisitions, and then ultimately as a VC, as an investor. And so there's this sort of path back out of finance toward being an operator or an entrepreneur, and ultimately made the jump into startup land. And so it's interesting because I think of myself as an accidental entrepreneur, right? Like I had to go through the finance path to kind of get there. But as you say, I've been doing it for 20 years. I'm not myself particularly creative. Like, there is a reason I'm not an influencer. This is about as close as I get to making videos, or anybody wants me to get to making videos. But I still love the math and how it all fits together. And so I was an economics major in undergrad, and this meeting of how math translates into the business is where I get really jazzed up. So when you're talking about conversion rate lifts and the benefit of down funnel traffic versus, you know, the on-site passive lift, this is the part actually where I really geek out, and it's been a lot of fun. And now I'm moving into the later stages of my career, and so doing a lot of mentorship, you know, with our team, and trying to do thought leadership like this to give back to the community. And I'm having a blast. I'm having the most fun I've ever had in my career. So it's been a great ride.
So where do you think this interest in the numbers translating into some kind of a business benefit, where do you think that comes from?
I think it's just simply like understanding. It's my version of understanding how the world is put together, right? And so that math inclination of, I want everything to be quantifiable and I want everything to be concrete, yet at the same time, right, like growing crops or you know, building products, right? There's something that's very non-mathematical about that, right? There's something that you have to understand, the art of creation. And again, I'm not the guy necessarily to be the expert in that art of creation. And so I'm the guy who wants to be able to quantify it and understand the value and understand how to translate it down into some sort of, you know, into some sort of model, and for it to make sense. And so, for example, like one of the things, because I try as best I can to keep up, you know, in the evolution of like economic theory. And what's happened in economics since I graduated is basically we've gone really deep into the what's called behavioral economics, right? And so if anybody's like read the book Freakonomics, we used to have this theory when I was an undergrad, like the rational man. And we would say, like, here's the way people should behave. So we're going to make all the economic models around the way people should behave. And then people don't behave that way. So the last 30 years has been grappling with the way people actually behave and trying to quantify that. And that's what I love. That's what I love, the messy reality and trying to figure out and rationalize it. And, so account for the messiness, but move us toward models of rationality. And that's an endlessly fascinating place to be. And by the way, it even then translates into my real life, into running. You mentioned at the beginning that I was a runner. Not only like have I worn, a GPS watch and I measure every run, down to it. And I take all the statistics that Garmin or Nike or whoever's app, I'm using will give me, but I have a spreadsheet that then further breaks down my performance and analyzes it based on my average heart rate and the length that I went and the pace that I went. And so I score. I've got all these metrics I've made up to analyze and rationalize the quality of this run versus that run. And so now I'm doing a lot of the same thing. And now I've got this thing, a Whoop, right? If your fans haven't seen this, you got to check out the Whoop. It measures every breath, every heartbeat throughout the day, and it quantifies all these different like biological things. It goes way beyond like the initial petty trackers and things like that. I just totally geek out on that because it's so messy and it doesn't make sense why today I'm performing worse than yesterday. But that's it. That's it. It's trying to quantify and translate back and forth between the numbers and the experience they have, and it's just I just love it.